Hermanos y hermanas, ¿cómo estáis? So, I went to Valencia with 570 hours of comprehensible input. Now, this trip was quite significant for me. Why? Because this time last year, I went to Barcelona with no experience with the language, no contact with the language. The only things I did know how to say was "Hola, buenos días, lo siento y no hablo español." And I had an experience in Barcelona that I found deeply embarrassing. Now, what was this experience? Well, I was in a shop, I was buying groceries, just something to eat. Um, it was actually right next to the hotel. And when I got to the till to buy the groceries, a woman said something to me. The woman serving me said something to me, and I had no idea what she said. So I fell back on my extensive arsenal of vocabulary at the time, which was "Lo siento, no hablo español." And this woman got really frustrated and really angry. Now, I'm someone who's always been interested in language, but never really took that dive, or never really, not that I've never took that dive, I've never really found a good way to learn the language. That has been my problem throughout. Luckily, there was a guy on the opposite till who said to me, "Do you guys need a bag?" We didn't need a bag at the time. Got conversation done, but I carried that experience around with me throughout the rest of that trip. And by the time I got back, my heart was set on wanting to learn Espanol. So I spent a couple of months trying the traditional way, and I did not get very far at all until I found Dreaming Spanish in October 2024, and here I am. So up from October 2024 up until the end of May this year, 2025, I've been getting input, and by the time I went to Valencia, I had 570 hours. So I'm super excited to bring this video to you. I'm super excited to talk about my experiences. Now, in this video, I'm going to split it into two sections. One section being my experiences with speaking, and the other section being my experience with comprehension. Now, if you follow Pablo's advice, he advises the purists to not speak until they get to 1,000 hours of input. Now, I am a person that falls into that category. I don't want to speak until I get to 1,000 hours. So why am I going to talk about speaking? Well, I think my Espanol is okay. It's passable. I have conversations with myself in my head now and again, short conversations with myself in the mirror, but I only say things that come naturally to me. I only say things that I can source with ease. And this is what I tried to do in Valencia. I only wanted to have very basic conversations. And of course, I think as well, going over to a country and trying to speak the language, I think the locals appreciate it. I think that woman last year at Barcelona would have definitely appreciated it with how upset she got. so so I'll start with my experiences. So I landed in Valencia, and obviously I had to go through passport control. Now the passport control in Spain is ran through the Policia Nacional, and as I was in the queue coming up to passport control, I had mixed emotions. You know, I was excited, but one of the main emotions I was feeling was nervous, anxiety. In other words, I was shitting my pants. Like I was so nervous. My leg was shaking, literally. You know, I've spent 8 months learning the language, and now I finally get to the opportunity to speak it face to face, and not just face to face with some random local on the streets, face to face with an officer of the Policia Nacional. But luckily for me, the police officer was extremely nice. He was extremely happy. Um, and I started speaking with him, you know, hola, ¿cómo estás? Estoy muy feliz para estar aquí, finalmente. Um, and to be honest, he was super impressed with my Espanol. I ended up speaking about how long I'd been learning. I told him since October, so it was a total of 8 months. And he was like, wow, he was super impressed. So that gave me a massive confidence boost. Now, I cannot tell you what a good feeling that is to have a positive reaction when speaking the language first time. Now, if you speak to somebody over the phone, another language learner, okay, yes, you are outside your comfort zone, but it is not the same as speaking with someone face to face in the street in a almost formal situation. it's totally different. The spontaneity, this the spontanism of the conversation, that can be thrown upon you. Granted, I was probably overthinking about this, but it's a real possibility of that happening. Somebody saying to you, somebody saying something to you that's outside of the context of the conversation that you are having, and that created a lot of nerves for me. But luckily for me, I had a really, really positive experience with that. So that was good. Now, every day I was in a cafe ordering coffees, ordering a cake, a breakfast pastry, whatever. Now, most of the time, I ordered the same thing: dos cafés con leche, uno normal y otro descafeinado, which means two lattes, one normal, and one decaffeinated. Now, I had mixed experiences with this, because over a period of 5 days, sometimes more than five opportunities, because I didn't just go to cafes, I also went to restaurants. I also stopped in the middle of the day, to tomar una Fanta Limon, to have a kind of Fanta Lemon for freshen up, because it was really warm. And I'd say my experiences were 50-50 in terms of good and bad. I had a few people switch to English, and that's, I'm not going to lie to you, that knocks your confidence straight up. It knocks your confidence. It makes you feel that your ability to speak not isn't great, which I know it isn't, but it still knocks your confidence. But you have, what I did is to get myself back up, brush the dirt off my shoulders. I I told myself that these people are not there to aid my language learning journey. These people are there working. There's a queue behind me. There's plenty of people that need serving. They haven't got time to, or they might have the time, but they might not have the patience. And this is a harsh reality of it. They might not have the patience for you to make mistakes when they can speak perfect English and they can tell you're English. So yeah, it's about accepting that. But other experience I had really good. I had some really good experience. For example, one day I went out for a hike in a town called Chelva outside of Valencia. This was where I was mainly with a group of Americans and Canadians and one Scotsman. And I ordered myself a coffee there, and that conversation was totally in Espanol. So this is what I mean. There was a variation of results, and obviously there is going to be a variation of experiences because you're dealing with a variation of people. Not everybody has the patience. So yeah, that was great. I mean, but talk walking through the streets as well. I mean, I'm going to get onto my comprehension later, but you could just hear Espanol, and you're totally immersed in it. And you notice when you're in cities, there's usually people in the streets with menus in their hand trying to entice you into their restaurant. Um, I had one guy trying to pass me a menu, was speaking to me something in English, and I just turned around and said, "Gracias, pero no tengo hambre." And that shocked him. He was like, "Wow, no tienes hambre, no?" So yeah, that was a great experience. Very brief and short, but once again, these were words that come to me naturally. So it was nice to be able to utilize the very limited amount of vocabulary and resources in terms of Espanol, in terms of words and phrases that I have available to me on hand, to be able to utilize them in real time, in real time situations. So that was brilliant. Um, Another great experience I had. So in Valencia, there's these ancient Roman remains that got found. That was dug up when they were doing some sort of work. I had to go see it. I really like my history. In fact, the day before then, I went to the Mestella. It's a football stadium, Valencia's football stadium. Really, really old actually. Really old. Looks quite dated, but it's quite big, about 50,000 capacity. But I bought this top. Now this is Valencia's. This is last season's Valencia's training top. And I had it on this day that I went to the Roman remains. Now the woman behind the counter there, she didn't know a word of English, and the first thing she said, once I'd asked for the tickets of entry, was "De donde vienes?" which means "Where do you come from?" Oh, great! I had perfect opportunity to speak Espanol. I was buzzing, man, and I was like, "Soy de Nottingham, Inglaterra. ¿Conoces Robin Hood?" with being from Nottingham, most people haven't really heard of Nottingham, but a lot of people across the world have heard of Robin Hood. So it's it's a good way to help people have an idea about whereabouts in England you're from. And she didn't know Nottingham. She didn't know Nottingham. She didn't know Robin Hood either, to my surprise. The only place that she'd heard of was Londres. In her a quote in her words, Londres. Um, but it was that was great because I was speaking to her about the diversity in Nottingham and England, and telling her that Nottingham's a great place to go. It's in it's in the East Midlands within the UK. Um, and so that was a great experience, and it really boosted my confidence. Now later that day, wearing the same top, obviously, I went to buy tickets for entry to climb a tower in Valencia. It's a must, tourist attraction, obviously. Um, Now there was a guy behind the ticket counter, and he asked me the same question in a different format. De donde eres? I replied with pretty much the same vocabulary. Soy de Nottingham, de Inglaterra. Conoces Robin Hood? This guy didn't know Robin Hood. No, this guy did know Robin Hood. Sorry, but the reason I'm telling you about this experience was because of what happened. He switched to English. Now, I knew at this point that there was nothing wrong with my Espanol, nothing wrong at all. I was really clear, and not just clear, I was really confident in what I was saying, because it's to me it's basic conversation and it's basic language that I have instant access to. So when he switched to English, um, it made reflecting back on this, it made me think maybe these guys aren't swapping to English because my Espanol no es suficiente, because it's not sufficient. Maybe they're swapping to English because they want to practice their English with a native. So upon reflection, the times when I was in the cafe and I felt it was a bad experience, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was these guys trying to take advantage of wanting to speak with a native English person, because obviously English is a very important language. It's the most important language across the world. It's the language that people connect with each other. You could you could have eyes on a woman from Thailand and a man from Senegal, and they don't speak each other's native language, but they both speak English, and that's the language they connect from. So this is something that I'm going to have to take into account going forward, and not take it to heart when somebody swaps to English if they know that I'm from England. Um, I'm going to tell you about one last experience in terms of talking, and this was in a shop. Um, and it was me getting groceries. Now I've told you about the story in Barcelona and the la vergüenza that I felt, the embarrassment that I felt. Um, this time I was ready. I bought my groceries, I put them on the counter, and I was waiting for it. And then the question come: ¿Necesitas una bolsa? Sí, claro que sí. De hecho, yo necesito tres bolsas. I was ready. I was ready. And it was such a good feeling to be able to communicate on that very, very basic level and not experience similar feelings to what I experienced this time last year in Barcelona. I felt like I redeemed myself. So, just having that experience to me is showing that this dreaming Spanish method is working. So that was fantastic. Now I'm going to go on to comprehension now, because all of that speaking stuff I've just spoken about is great. It's absolutely fantastic. But I knew in my heart, I knew in my head that I wasn't going over there to have deep, complex conversations. I was going over there, number one, for a break. So I was ready for a break, ready for a holiday. Um, and number two, I was going to practice my comprehension, because that's where I'm at right now. I'm all about improving my comprehension, expanding my vocabulary, becoming more familiar with the grammatical structures of the language, and I wanted to see how I would handle being immersed in the surroundings. So I mentioned I mentioned earlier about getting to the airport and hearing the language. Right, soon as I walked outside, outside of the airport, I could hear the language straight away, and I understood. I could zone in on people's conversations and understand clearly without any issues whatsoever. Now, this is fantastic. As I continued walking, because I caught the metro from the airport to the Ciutat Vella, the old town in Valencia. Direct metro, brilliant. Um, as I was walking, I was looking at the signs. Now, the signs around the airport, they're in three languages: Castellano, Valenciano, and English. As I got into Valencia, they dropped the English, and sometimes they dropped the Castellano as well. There were mucho Valenciano in the signs. Um, because obviously it's a bilingual community. Valencia is, and Valenciano is its own language. It's even different from Catalan. Some people argue this. I'm, I want to stay away from that. But being on the metro, I could zone in on people's conversations in here. Granted, I did not understand everything because they were too neat. There were multiple natives speaking to each other, sometimes in groups of three or four. It's very difficult to understand that level of Espanol when there's two people or more speaking at the same time. Um, but simple conversation between two people, I could really zone in. I'll give you I'll give you an example, a brilliant example of that. So one day I went to the what what I've read as probably a more authentic, older side of Valencia. So back maybe 100 years ago, when Valencia was a really sorry about that was a really big fishing community. This part of Valencia that I went to was still had its roots set in that. There were shades of that history throughout this part of town, and I stopped in a restaurant just to get a Fanta Limon and take a break. Descansar un poco, relax a little bit, and what I'm about to tell you now was the most detailed bit of conversation I got, because I was sat here, I was relaxing, and there was two older women sat behind me. Now, on this day, there was a market in this town, and me and my father, that's who I went with, we both went to the market, we had a look round, it was great. But these women had also done the same. Now, this particular woman that was speaking, I overheard her, to summarize, talking about how her granddaughter wears really dark clothes, and she doesn't like it. So she bought her, I think it was a dress or a shirt, because I had my back to her, I couldn't see, so I didn't have that visual prompts either. But so she bought her this dress that she was talking about, that she had in her hands, I assume. Um, that was colourful, to try and encourage you to wear a little bit more brighter clothes and things like that. Now, this experience was for me was the best, was the highest quality, I got the most detail out of this conversation. And now at 570 hours, let's be serious. I think that level of detail, gaining that comprehension, gaining that level of detail from a conversation, is more than adequate. So I come away feeling very, very happy, and I come away feeling even more motivated, because next year I booked a trip to a place called Salamanca. Salamanca is a town that Pablo mentions in one of his videos. It's a good place for immersion. So I'm going for a month next year. So I'm hoping I'm going to be talking, I'm going to be conversational. Who knows? Maybe even fluent. I did just want to add one thing in terms of comprehension, and it's to summarise. There wasn't one single occasion where somebody spoke to me directly in Espanol where I didn't understand. Maybe I struggled to reply, but I understood 100% of the time. So, brilliant. Totally worth it, and it just gives you much more desire to go out and to acquire more. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that if you've had any of the experiences like this, or you're going to have an experience like this soon, and you're on similar amount of hours to where I was when I went to Valencia, that you enjoy it as much as I did. And if you do not put too much pressure on yourself in terms of speaking. That's what I did, and I think I created the negative side of it for myself. So, guys, take care. Good to speak to you. Bye.